Meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee will come to order. Today is the 14th nominations hearing of this year. Including nominations hearings, we've held 35 full committee hearings, 22 markups. I want to thank the ranking member, Senator Graham, for his partnership, as well as all the members of the committee. We've been busy this year. It's one of the busiest committees in the Senate. The work continues today. We'll hear from 5 judicial nominees. Nicole Berner, nominated to the Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. Adeel Mangi, nominated to the Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Judge Amy Bajio, nominated to the District of Oregon. Judge Crystal Brisco, nominated to the Northern District of Indiana. And Judge Gretchen Lund, also nominated to the Northern District of Indiana. Congratulations to our nominees and their families. I'd like to begin by noting that the Circuit Court nominees on today's first panel would be, quote, first on the bench. Ms. Berner would be the first LGBTQ American to serve on the Fourth Circuit. Mr. Mangi would be the first Muslim American to serve as judge on a federal appellate court. It is important to recognize these historic milestones, as well as the accomplishments and professional experience of all the nominees. I expect their exemplary qualifications will be the focus of today's hearing. Second, each of today's nominees has received blue slips from both of their home state senators. This includes Judges Brisco and Lund, who've received blue slips from Senator Young and Senator Braun of Indiana. I thank them and the White House for working together in good faith to fill these and many other vacancies in their state. We've seen similar progress in other states. In fact, this is the third nominations hearing in a row with at least one nominee with a blue slip from a Republican home state senator. I look forward to seeing more of the same in the new year. We have several colleagues joining us to introduce nominees, but I'll first turn to Ranking Member Graham for opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last night, or yesterday, I guess, over 10,000 people showed up at the border. And we talked a lot about Ukraine, the president did. I'm very supportive of funding Ukraine. I know we're supposed to be talking about judges here today, but the bottom line, to my Democratic colleagues, what's enough? At what point do you realize this is a clear and present danger to the safety of the United States? Last week, the FBI director told this committee, wherever he looks, he sees blinking lights. The threat levels are across the board, the highest he's ever seen since he's been associated with the FBI. That there's a rogues gallery of terrorist groups urging an attack on America to pay us back for helping Israel. That October the 7th, the attack on Israel, barbaric in nature, we have to stand with Israel. I get that. But they're trying to punish us for standing with Israel. So we've talked a lot about, the president did yesterday, never mentioned the border. I had sat there with President Zelensky talking about the need for Ukraine. I got it. If you listen to that interview, it was like there's nothing wrong with our border in the eyes of the president. He makes glancing remarks about, yeah, we need to do more, I'm willing to compromise. There's no sense of urgency here. I understand why Ukraine needs help sooner rather than later to make sure that Putin understands the war is not going to end, it's going to continue. So to my Democratic colleagues, you don't have a sense of urgency, we do. Many of us want to help Ukraine, but we believe that America is exposed to another 9/11 unlike any time since 9/11 itself, and we're sitting around doing almost nothing about it. So I'm hoping that things will change, because if they don't change, we're taking a great risk to the American people at a time when we should be securing our own border as well as helping others.
Senator Graham, I would concur with your conclusion that the current situation at the border is unsustainable. We are now dealing with 10 to 11,000 people per day. The administration, one spokesman told me, we have the capacity for 5,000 at the most. So you can see the system is breaking down by the sheer numbers that are presenting themselves. In terms of the president's commitment, he stated publicly he wanted to be engaged in this negotiation. And I believe yesterday a member of his cabinet sat down with the negotiators. I'm not in that room, so I can't say specifically who was there. But I will tell you that the effort includes Democrats at all levels, and I hope that we can reach a reasonable conclusion with the time remaining in this year. I will just add, too, that the meeting with President Zelensky yesterday was a reminder that the courage and determination of the Ukrainian people is virtually endless. They will fight to the death, and he made it clear that they would. I just hope the United States will keep its word to the Ukrainian people to stand by them with this terrible invasion that Putin has initiated. We now have several colleagues who've joined us to introduce today's nominees, and I'll now ask hear introductions first from Senator Cardin, who is here to introduce Ms. Berner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham. Thank you for scheduling this confirmation hearing. Today, I'm pleased to introduce to the committee Nicole Berner of Maryland, who has been nominated by President Biden to sit on the U.S. Circuit Court for the Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. Ms. Berner has been nominated by President Biden to fill the vacancy created by Judge Diana Motz, who took senior status in September of 2022. I was pleased to recommend Nicole Berner's nomination to the White House along with Senator Van Hollen. Ms. Berner serves as General Counsel to the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, where she has practiced as in-house counsel since 2006 before becoming General Counsel in 2017. Previously, she served as staff attorney for Planned Parenthood Federation of America, worked as a litigation associate at Jenner & Block in Washington, D.C., and worked as a visiting attorney at Yigal Aharon and Company in Jerusalem, Israel from 1999 to 2000. She served as a law clerk for Judge Thelton Henderson of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California, and as a law clerk for Judge Betty Fletcher of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. She received her JD, Order of Coit, from the University of California, Berkeley School of Law, and her MPP from the Goldman School of Public Policy. She also received her BA Phi Beta Kappa from the University of California at Berkeley. Nicole Berner has been fighting for civil rights and worker rights throughout her career. And I'm excited to have her bring this experience and deep knowledge of the law to the federal bench. As General Counsel of the 2 million member strong Service Employees International Union, Ms. Berner oversees the work of about 24 lawyers in the legal department, as well as engaging and overseeing with about 200 outside attorneys. She brings an outstanding track record of fighting for working families, including many low-wage service and care workers. In this role, she has excelled in a broad range of legal skills, including litigation, negotiations, arbitration, and advocacy before regulatory bodies, and providing legal advice on policy issues and legislation at the state and federal levels. She's filed numerous amicus curiae briefs at the Supreme Court, as well as the circuit and district court levels. She estimates that she has been actively involved in hundreds of cases in federal and state court. She also regularly provides advice to her clients on a diverse range of legal areas, including criminal law, voting rights, federal preemption, antitrust, bankruptcy, immigration, First Amendment, and the Affordable Care Act. She has a great breadth of experience. When looking at Mrs. Berner's legal career, a couple themes stand out to me, and I'd like to share that with the committee. First, she is motivated by a desire to ensure full and fair access to the courts for all Americans, regardless of their social status or financial resources. Indeed, the judicial oath that judges take required them to swear to do equal rights to the poor and to the rich. She has consistently advocated for the interests of historically underrepresented communities. Second, as a skilled appellate lawyer, she has organized legal strategies to bring her clients' voices to the courts and tell their story. She seeks to show how their lives will be affected by the outcome of a case. During the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, she represented frontline workers who literally put their lives and health at risk to do their jobs and keep our economy running, when many Americans were told to stay home until a vaccine was developed. Her SEIU clients include workers in the fast-growing occupations of public service, healthcare, home care, child care, janitorial, and building security. Third, she would bring a unique and diverse perspective to the appellate court. We know that the Fourth Circuit is a particularly diverse circuit that includes the states of Maryland, West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. A more diverse bench will better reflect the populations they serve. Nicole brings to the bench both her vast experience as an appellate lawyer and her own personal advocacy as a Jewish woman on so many civil rights issues. Ms. Berner would be the first openly LGBTQ judge in the history of the Fourth Circuit and would break the glass ceiling. She also has personal experience when it comes to discrimination due to sexual orientation. Ms. Berner successfully won a long-running case involving her own family at the Israeli Supreme Court in a landmark ruling that required the government to recognize two mothers as the parent of one child. In conclusion, I would note that Mrs. Berner is a longtime resident of Montgomery County, Maryland. She has been an active member of her synagogue and community and lives in Tacoma Park, Maryland. I appreciate the opportunity to meet Mrs. Berner. I was pleased to hear she intends, if confirmed, to have her judicial chambers in the Baltimore Federal Courthouse. This will allow her to be more fully integrated into the diverse and vibrant Maryland legal community. Let me close by saying I know the public service is not just for the nominee, but for her family. Many of her family members are here with us today, and she brings friends from as far away as Israel. We welcome them to the room, and thank you very much for this attention.
Thank you, Senator Cardin. Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Graham, members of the Judiciary Committee. I'm honored to be here with my friend and colleague, Senator Cardin, to introduce President Biden's nominee for the Maryland seat on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit, Ms. Nicole Berner. I'd also like to welcome members of her family, her wife Deborah, and their sons Matan, Nave, Segev, and Ari, as well as Nave's fiancé, who could not join us in person because we couldn't get a sign language interpreter. But to Salamar, I would like to welcome you here today. He is watching proudly on C-SPAN. She is watching proudly on C-SPAN. Let me just say to the extended family from Israel, we are thrilled to have you here today as well. Look, to provide Americans with a fair, just, and equal treatment under the law, our judicial system and judges must be wholly dedicated to these principles. And for too long, our justice system has not represented all of America's voices. President Biden has nominated a justice in Nicole Berner, who understands that the protections and rights of the Constitution extend to all people, all Americans. And I'm confident that if confirmed, Ms. Berner will serve admirably and faithfully on the bench. Throughout her career, she has provided outstanding legal representation to advance the rights of working families and historically underrepresented communities, demonstrating her commitment to delivering equal justice for all. Senator Cardin has covered many of the highlights in her legal practice. I do want to expand on a particular case that he referenced, which was Ms. Berner's own case where she had to defend her own family. At the time, she and her family were living in Israel, and Israel did not recognize the non-birth parent in a same-sex marriage as a legal parent. Through a multi-year battle, she fought for and eventually won the right to be recognized for what her eldest son, Matan, already knew to be the truth. She was wholly and unequivocally his mom. That ruling is considered one of the most important LGBTQ rights decisions in Israeli history, expanding the rights of families like hers in perpetuity and representing yet another example of Ms. Berner's dedication to supporting all families. But it was also an experience that taught Ms. Berner, quote, how humbling and terrifying it is to be a litigant defending the most important thing she has, unquote. I know that she will bring that experience with her every day to the court, understanding that everybody who's coming before the Fourth Circuit, if confirmed, believes that their case is the most important case in the world. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I would just like to bring to your attention a letter of recommendation signed by rabbis from all over the country. The concluding paragraph reads as follows. Our tradition teaches that the crown of a good name exceeds all of life's achievements. We believe that this appellation is meant to apply to a person's integrity, a person who consistently and courageously acts on what they believe, a person for whom there is no dissonance between outward appearance and action and inner constitution, a person of sterling character who is consistently able to discern what is right. Nicole is such a person. Members of the committee, I join Senator Cardin in urging her rapid confirmation.
Thank you, Senator Van Hollen. Senator Menendez.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, distinguished members of the committee. Today I have the pleasure of joining Senator Booker in introducing an exceptionally well-qualified nominee to serve on the United States Third Circuit Court of Appeals, Mr. Adeel Mangi of New Jersey. I could not be more proud of joining Senator Booker and recommending Adeel to President Biden for this important vacancy. He embodies the highest values of the legal profession. His stellar career and lived experiences give me a great confidence that he would be a brilliant, fair-minded, and empathetic judge on the Third Circuit. And if confirmed, Adeel would make history as the first ever Muslim to serve on our federal appellate courts, a long overdue milestone in our efforts to diversify our federal judiciary. For all these reasons and much more, which I'll get to in a moment, Adeel is without question the right person for the job. I want to take a moment to recognize his family members in attendance today. He's accompanied by his wife, Sarah, his sons, Asmir and Zarun, and his brother, Abel, who I'm sure Adeel would say that without their help and support, he would not be here today. So we welcome them as well. Adeel was born and raised in Karachi, a teeming port city of over 20 million people on the southern coast of Pakistan. He spent the first 18 years of his life in Karachi, where his parents instilled in him the value of education and the importance of standing out and speaking up. Adeel recalls first wanting to become a lawyer after being mesmerized by the legendary American legal show Matlock, which was airing in Karachi. See, we have far-reaching influence in the world. And when he was in grade school. He attended the storied Karachi Grammar School, where he rose to become a champion debater, foretelling a bright future as a world-class litigator. He then ventured to the United Kingdom, earning his law degree from the University of Oxford and qualifying to become a British barrister at law in 1999. Inspired to further his legal studies, he decided to emigrate again to the United States to earn his LLM from Harvard Law School in 2000. Adeel's global upbringing and education have given him a unique perspective on the law and society, and in his own telling has deepened his admiration for the American justice system and the rule of law. Following his legal education at Harvard, he settled in Jersey City, New Jersey, joined the prestigious New York City law firm Patterson, Belknap, Webb, and Tyler. He hasn't looked back since. Starting as an associate in 2000, he rapidly climbed the ranks of Patterson, demonstrating his prowess as a civil appellate litigator, becoming a partner in the firm in 2010. For the last 23 years at Patterson, Adeel has specialized in high-stakes, complex commercial litigation across a wide range of industries. He has successfully argued cases before a number of federal appeals and trial courts, as well as numerous state courts. His impressive track record winning cases for clients has earned him countless accolades as a premier commercial and appellate litigator, exactly the kind of legal experience we need on the Third Circuit, which routinely handles some of the country's most complex commercial cases. For all of these reasons, the Bar Association rated him unanimously well qualified. Throughout his time at Patterson, Adeel has never lost sight of the importance of giving back, and giving back he has significantly. He's devoted over 4,000 hours to pro bono matters, taking on high-profile cases representing vulnerable, often voiceless clients against powerful institutions and interests. His tireless pro bono work has led him to file 8 amicus briefs before the United States Supreme Court, more than 13 briefs before federal circuit courts across the country, again underscoring his readiness to serve as an appellate judge. One case in particular is emblematic of Adeel's dogged pursuit of justice for the most marginalized. He represented the family of a mentally ill African-American inmate in a New York State correctional facility who was killed by prison guards. In 2020, after a 2-week trial, he secured a $5 million settlement from the jury for the inmate's death, the largest settlement in New York State history involving the death of a state prison inmate, and a mandate that cameras and microphones be installed throughout the correctional facility. What I've outlined in terms of his background alone would be enough to merit his confirmation to the Third Circuit. But I'll close on this note. This is one of the most historic nominations I have ever had the privilege of participating in my 18 years in the Senate. If confirmed, Adeel would become the first ever Muslim to serve on our federal circuit courts. There are just 2 Muslims currently serving as Article III federal judges. If he is confirmed, I'm proud to know that 2 out of the 3 Muslim judges on the federal bench would be from New Jersey, both himself and New Jersey District Court Judge Zarid Karachi. This is a milestone we should have reached many years ago. With nearly 3.5 million Muslims in the United States and just over 320,000 Muslims in New Jersey alone, Our Muslim communities have waited far too long for better representation in our democracy. His confirmation would help ensure that our most hallowed institutions better reflect the rich and diverse tapestry of America. In conclusion, I couldn't think of a better nominee for this incredibly important seat on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. I am confident you will see during the course of this hearing, he is a lawyer's lawyer, brilliant, dignified, open-minded, and empathetic. It's exactly why I'm sure he will excel as a judge's judge if confirmed to the Third Circuit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Menendez. Before recognizing Senator Booker, I should have mentioned earlier, my colleagues have busy schedules as well, and you're certainly welcome to stay as long as you wish. But if you would like to step out, it will not reflect on your interest in the nominees. Senator Booker.
Senator, I'd love to defer to the Oregon senators and the Indiana senator. They may have to go. I'm going to be here for the duration, so I'll go after Senator Young, if that's okay.
Next is Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the ever-collegial Senator Booker as well. And I'm going to be very brief because we have a terrific nominee. Senator Merkley and I feel very strongly about Amy Bajio, who's been nominated for the U.S. District Court for the District of Oregon. She comes with a background, colleagues, as both a jurist and a litigator. And I particularly want to mention her career on the bench. She has presided over hundreds of civil and criminal matters and handled something in the vicinity of 42 trials, half of which were jury trials throughout her career, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. And this is a testament to the judge's fairness. She has never been asked, colleagues, by any party, either the prosecutor or the defense, for a different judge. And I think suffice it to say that is a testament to her approach with respect to fairness and balance. Also, in addition to fairness, she's demonstrated an ability to make thoughtful decisions that protect our communities and protect our values. For example, in one case, she sentenced a man to 34 years in prison for disturbing crimes, including first-degree sexual abuse. This sentence was significantly longer than that was requested by defense counsel. Despite an appeal from the defense on multiple issues, her decision in that case was ultimately affirmed. This is just, in my view, one example of her dedication to the law, to fairness, and ensuring that community values are represented in her decisions. She has a couple of other attributes that I would just say, colleagues, are, I think, particularly important. First, I have appreciated her long service as a mentor to newer lawyers. We're always looking for lawyers to give back. I remember when I ran the legal aid program for senior citizens. I've talked to many of you about that over the years, and we were always looking for individuals who'd be mentors. Amy Bajio has been exactly that and has been a leader at the Oregon State Bar and the Oregon Judicial Department in that regard. Also, she spent a number of years volunteering at elementary schools, providing support to help individual students with reading. Again, this to me shows her deep background in caring about our community. Finally, her ratings, and it's no surprise here, are unanimous, well-qualified from the American Bar Association. And obviously, her judicial temperament, her savvy, her even-handedness, compassion, and dedication to the law is what gave her that rating. She was advanced in a special committee that Senator Merkley and I have had for a number of years. We've always tried to work in a bipartisan way. The chairman remembers Senator Hatfield. Senator Hatfield and I started it. Senator Merkley and I continue it. And it is that committee that has advanced Judge Bajio. I urge my colleagues to support her nomination. And in the interest of time, and because my thoughtful partner in the Oregon delegation will have some important things to say, let me yield at that point.
Thanks, Senator White. Senator Merkley.
Thank you, Chair Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, members of the committee. It's an honor to come and assist Senator White in introducing you to Judge Bajio. She's unquestionably qualified to serve on the federal bench. I know she'll do an exceptional job because her experience is extensive and deep. Since 2019, she's been a judge on the Multnomah County Circuit Court in Portland, Oregon. Prior to that, she had her own law firm. And prior to that, she was in the Office of the Federal Public Defender for the District of Oregon, as well as the Portland Office of the Metropolitan Public Defender. When she first went to law school, she anticipated going into environmental law. Then a clerkship at the Federal Public Defender's Office convinced her of the need to bring her skills to represent the indigent and the underserved. There is no justice in the justice system if defendants do not have competent representation. She engaged not only her clients but their families to achieve results that allowed them to address the underlying issues that led them to the criminal justice system. Since taking the bench in 2019, she's made important rulings like protecting basic health care rights of incarcerated people during COVID-19 pandemic. She's shown her passion for protecting the innocent and her impartiality in preserving the rule of law. That kind of human understanding is what is happening in her courtroom. So along with being a brilliant jurist, it's why she's so effective, and it's why she's so respected. And you can't help but notice that the same words keep coming up when people describe her: kind, conscientious, committed, compassionate, qualified, respectful, and respected. But I'll add one more word. That is, she's an Oregonian. She may have been born in Pennsylvania. She may have gone to high school in Alabama. She may have attended college in North Carolina, but she came to Oregon to attend Lewis and Clark Law School and made our state her home and her own. She's a proud Oregonian, and Oregonians are proud of her. She is so well qualified that I'm particularly delighted to be here today on behalf of our state to support her nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Merkley. Senator Young.
Thank you, Chair Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and members of the committee. I have the honor today of introducing two fine Hoosier judges who have been nominated to serve on the District Court for the Northern District of Indiana. I don't wish to show favoritism, so I'll go in alphabetical order. First, the Honorable Crystal Brisco. She currently serves as a judge on the St. Joseph County Superior Court. She was appointed to that position by Republican Governor Eric Holcomb in 2021. She's a lifelong Hoosier growing up in Gary, attending undergrad at Valparaiso and law school at Notre Dame. She, her husband, and two daughters have remained in the South Bend area. Judge Gretchen Lund has served as Superior Court judge in Elkhart County since 2015 and has also served as judge in Goshen City Court and a deputy prosecutor in Elkhart County. She's also a lifelong Hoosier, having attended Butler University and Valparaiso University. She lives in Goshen with her husband and daughters. I've recommended many fellow Hoosiers to this committee over the years, but until today, I hadn't had the pleasure of recommending judges from our state superior courts. The judges in our state courts are working incredibly hard every day to administer justice in our local communities. I'm struck oftentimes by their caseloads. And I suspect, as with our federal court system, they could use some more judges, but they plow through it and do their work diligently and quite professionally. So I'm grateful for each and every one of those state court judges. But before you today are two of our very best. Judge Lund and Judge Brisco have impressed their colleagues and those who have come before their courts. If confirmed, they'll be missed locally, but I trust they'll bring the same sense of professionalism to the federal bench. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Young. Senator Booker.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I am really excited right now, and for all of my colleagues like Senator Graham who love New Jersey almost as much as they love their own states, this is a very great moment that I have. It's just an honor, an immense honor, to introduce Adeel Mangi as a nominee to serve as a circuit court judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Now, I confess that this introduction may be a little bit strained because I am very jealous of this man. Not only did he marry such an extraordinary woman that somehow outdoes him in stature, prowess, grace, and intelligence, but he also makes me jealous because he has two extraordinary boys who are sitting there with him right now, and truly they will outshadow the parents in the future. But I'm also jealous because he too in the 90s studied at the University of Oxford. As one of my friends, knowing the both of us, said, I was a bright flashlight at Oxford, but Adeel was a star. And I am grateful that this man who learned about the United States of America and our legal system, fell in love with it in Pakistan, made a determination to be a part of it here in the United States of America. After studying at the University of Oxford, he made a mistake and went to a safety school called Harvard. He also studied, receiving a full academic scholarship available only to the best students in the UK. Upon graduation, Mr. Mangi joined the prestigious law firm, New York City law firm, Patterson, Belknap, Webb, and Tyler, where he is now a partner. In the 20 years in private practice, he has become extraordinarily notable, not just for his incredible successes as a private lawyer. He's tried multiple cases to verdict, judgment, or final decision, served as a party or an amicus brief counsel in more than 30 appeals before federal courts, and has counsel on numerous amicus briefs submitted to the United States Supreme Court. But what he has become known as, and what many people reached out, is because he has become that star for justice when it comes to religious freedom and religious liberty. It's not often that I have people from such diverse communities, from Catholic leaders to Sikh leaders, who will testify to the important role that he has played amidst his private career in advancing the cause in our country of religious liberty and religious freedom. He has worked on so many issues that has made him in New Jersey one of our preeminent lawyers. Indeed, Benchmark Litigation said nationally he is one of America's top 100 trial lawyers in the United States, making note of his extraordinary work when it comes to protecting religious liberty. His accomplishments also extend to vindicating the rights of many people who faced the most oppressive challenges. I am proud that this American is going to the federal bench because I would be terrified if he ran for office against me in the 2026 elections. So this is a very self-interested cause of mine, is to get him on the federal bench and out of my life. And so the historic nature, as Senator Menendez mentioned, of this nomination cannot be understated. This is a person that is extraordinary in his dedication to American ideals and American values, standing up for those who often don't have the opportunity to stand up for themselves. I am proud that this Jersey boy, straight out of Jersey City, a city known for extraordinary immigrants making extraordinary contributions to our country, will continue in that tradition and hopefully get away from the Article 1 branch of government and be safely secured in the Article 3. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Booker. And now I'd like to ask the two circuit court nominees to approach the witness table for questions from members. You'll please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you very much. Let the record reflect that both of the nominees answered in the affirmative, which makes my job easier. And I think we're going to start with Ms. Berner. You each have 5 minutes to speak, and then after that, we'll allow my colleagues to have the same option.
Good morning.
Morning.
I want to begin by thanking you, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and all of the members of this committee for holding this hearing. I'm aware you have many demands on your time, and I appreciate your making this hearing a priority. I also want to thank my home state senators, Senators Cardin and Van Hollen, for their support throughout this process, and in particular for their kind and generous introductions today. Finally, I want to thank President Biden for the tremendous honor of this nomination. This nomination has been the greatest honor of my professional life, and for that, I am extremely grateful. I am fortunate to be joined today by dear family, colleagues, and friends, some of whom have traveled a tremendous distance to be here. I want to begin by introducing my immediate family. Sitting behind me are my wife, Deborah, who believes in me and supports me in everything I do, my 3 sons, Matan, Neve, and Segev, and my stepson, Ari. My soon-to-be daughter-in-law, Solimar, is home caring for my new beloved grandson, Ori Mateo. Being a mother has been, without a doubt, the most important, rewarding, meaningful, and challenging aspect of my life. I have always worked hard to model for my children the values that were instilled in me by my own parents and by my faith. Values of hard work, commitment to education and community, to social service, and to the Jewish value of tikkun olam, repairing the world. My mother, who I lost last year, was born into the Great Depression, the first in her family to be born in this incredible country, to parents whose families had come to the United States from Eastern Europe in search of a better life. She grew up watching the horrors of World War II unfold across the ocean. She believed in our nation's values of equality and justice for all. She and my father, who worked in public service, raised me and my siblings with an abiding belief that it was each of our responsibility to work to ensure that all people, regardless of their background or station in life, were treated fairly, justly, and with dignity. My sister and my 2 brothers, who are watching this hearing remotely, each in their own way embody these values. I miss my mom every day, and I know she would have been so proud to have been here with me. Because they knew how much it would have meant to my mother to have been here with me, dear members of my extended family, Yafa, Michal, Shani, Fetterman, all traveled here from Israel to be with me today. They left their own children and grandchildren in the midst of a horrific war to come support me. I could not be more grateful to them for making this journey. Along with these members of my family, I'm also joined in the room and remotely by many other family members, colleagues and friends, mentors and mentees from throughout my life. I appreciate your support and your belief in me. Thank you, Senators, for the opportunity to introduce myself and my family, and I welcome the committee's questions.
Thank you, Ms. Berner. I'm going to ask the next nominee to please pronounce his last name because I think I mispronounced it, and I don't want to do that again.
Chair Durbin, it's Mangi, Adeel Mangi.
Mangi?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mangi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Chair Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and distinguished members of the committee. It's been an honor to hear the introductions of my fellow nominees. I regret I cannot claim to being a lifelong Hoosier, but I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself. In 1995, late one night, I set out from my home in Karachi. I was headed for the airport, bound for England to study law. I didn't know what the future held for me. I was 18 years old, but I could never have imagined that the path I was setting out upon would one day lead me here. I came to America in 1999 as a 22-year-old on a scholarship. And after completing my studies over the next 23 years, I had the privilege of litigating across 24 states in courts, both trial and appellate, state and federal. I did that first on a student visa work authorization, and then ultimately, many years later, with immense pride as an American citizen. It is an extraordinary honor to now be considered for this opportunity to serve my country. And I am so grateful to President Biden for this nomination and to Senators Booker and Menendez for their very kind introductions and their support. May I introduce my family? Here with me is my wife, Sarah Zaidi, over my left shoulder. Sarah is a child therapist. She helps children every day, including survivors, with her almost magical powers of healing. My life has been filled with many changes, but one constant since I was 16 years old is that everything has revolved around Sarah. Also here are our two boys, Azmir, who is 13, and Zaran, who is 12. I hope you like the knots on their ties. I tied them myself this morning. They are my closest advisors. They are also proud members of the North Jersey Youth Cricket Academy, and they'll be available after the hearing if any of you would like tips on your cricket game. Also here with me is my brother, Adeel. I'm told rhyming names were a thing in the 70s. He's a cardiothoracic surgeon in Connecticut. I'm very grateful for his support and guidance throughout my life. And while they cannot be here today, may I also recognize the support of my sister, Naveen, who runs a charity devoted to the uplift of the rural poor in Pakistan, and my parents, Abdullah Mangi, my father, and Anwar Mangi, my mother, who has now passed away. My parents showered us with love growing up and instilled in us a dedication to the pursuit of education. And that is what ultimately has delivered me here today. I'd also like to thank my many colleagues and dear friends at my law firm, Patterson, Belknap, Webb, and Tyler, who took a chance on an LLM student from Pakistan a very long time ago. With me here today is Bill Cavanaugh, who is one of my mentors from Patterson, Belknap, from whom I've learned much about being a lawyer, being a father, and being a human being. And finally, also here with me today are two of my very dear and old friends, Muhammad Ali Sayed and Christopher Winters, and I'm very grateful for their support as well. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mangi. As I read the backgrounds of both of the nominees, I was struck by similarities and contrast. Similarities in terms of your legal careers and what you've set out to do, sometimes facing great controversy in the process. And contrast in terms of where you came from and how you happen to be sitting at that table next to one another at this moment in history. It reminded me of two famous Americans whose lives were separated by 200 years of history. The first, John Adams, who's in 1770 stepped up and risked his life and his legal career and his political career, for that matter, to defend British soldiers after the deadly riot in Boston. And then I thought as well as of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. A known advocate came before this Senate asking to be appointed to the Supreme Court. At the end of the day, she never backed down on any of her beliefs and made it clear what her values would be if she was on the court, and was clear enough to this committee that the final vote was 96-3. I wish you the same good luck. But just to make the point that this committee saw a person who was convinced of her own values and didn't shrink from that conviction and still believed she could be a good and fair jurist, which she proved to be. So let's start at the beginning. Ms. Berner, you've been a passionate advocate and an effective advocate for many controversial issues. Will you carry that with you to the bench when you're faced with different laws and different facts that may draw you to a different conclusion?
Senator, good morning, and thank you for that question and the opportunity to respond. I have, during the course of my career, zealously advocated on behalf of millions of working men and women, and I've been proud of that work. I understand that the role of a judge is a very different role than the role of an advocate. I began my legal career as a law clerk to two esteemed jurists, and I served both on the Federal Court of Appeals and on the Federal District Court, and I saw firsthand the importance of approaching every case with an open mind, of studying the record in the case deeply and thoroughly, of understanding the relevant and binding precedent, and to fairly applying the precedent to the law without regard to prior representation or personal opinions on any issue, and that would be my commitment were I so fortunate as to be confirmed.
Mr. Mangi, you have represented some controversial clients in the past, and the obvious question is, are you sharing their views on things, or do you feel some obligation as an attorney that there be representation in court?
Senator, I believe it's critical and the foundation of our legal system that attorneys must effectively advocate for their clients, regardless of whether they agree with them or not.
And faced with a challenging situation of conscience on the court, when it comes down to different laws and different facts, what is your disposition?
Senator, my approach is always to study with an open mind and dispassionately the law and the facts and do my very best to come to a fair and just adjudication.
And if it's a struggle with your conscience as to your own personal views, what's going to decide the case?
Senator, I believe it is fundamentally important that litigants in the federal justice system be able to receive consistent adjudication from judges, regardless of that judge's personal beliefs or background. So I set aside my personal views, my background, my beliefs. I am looking to apply the law in a fair and even-handed way, consistent with my colleagues on the bench, if I'm so lucky to be confirmed.
In your legal career, have you appeared before a judge or worked with a judge that became kind of your North Star in terms of what you would aspire to be as a judge?
Senator, there are many judges for whom I have great admiration. One of them in the District of New Jersey, I won't name, but I will say what I have been so impressed by throughout my many appearances is that this judge always appears on the bench with immaculate preparation, a thorough knowledge of the law and the facts and the cases before them, conducts themselves with absolute dignity and respect for all of the parties in front of them, and then writes opinions that are intellectually honest, direct, confront all the issues in the case, easy or hard, such that whether you win or lose, you feel you have been fairly heard and fairly adjudicated.
Ms. Berner, same question.
Thank you, Senator. I have been fortunate to be come before and work for tremendous jurists throughout my life. I have been thinking a great deal over the last week, as I know many of us have, of the first woman justice on our Supreme Court. I remember so well her confirmation. I was a high school student, and when Sandra Day O'Connor was appointed, I saw that and I thought, as a woman, I can do anything. And she forged her own path. She broke glass ceilings. She maintained dignity and treated all fairly. And I know we are all thinking of her today, and I would like to bring her name into this room as well.
Thank you, Ms. Berner. Senator Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to both of you. Ms. Berner, is that right? Got your name right there? Good.
Yes, sir.
I understand you're a general counsel for SEIU, one of the largest unions in the country. I understand representing interests that I have made disagreement with is not disqualifying by any means, and advocating positions I may disagree with falls in that category as far as I'm concerned. In terms of things you have advocated for, have you advocated for collective bargaining rights for prisoners?
Senator, I have not.
Okay. Have you advocated that 40% of all large corporate boards be designated for worker representatives?
Senator, I have not come across that issue.
So the positions that I'm talking about you're not aware of?
Senator, the Service Employees International Union represents 2 million working Americans in every state in the country. The union takes positions on a broad range of issues. I've served as counsel to the union, and represented the union.
Are you familiar with a working group at Harvard called Clean Slate for Working Power, Building a Just Economy and Democracy?
Yes, I am, Senator.
Were you part of that group?
I was invited to participate in several meetings of that group,
Are
yes.
you familiar with the product that they created?
I am, Senator.
Are you familiar that they advocated labor rights for prisoners?
I know that that report is quite voluminous, and
Well, I mean, it's a simple question. That's one of the, do you understand they recommended 40% of corporate board seats be controlled by workers?
Senator, I participated in several meetings of that group. I did not.
That doesn't jump out at you? Okay. Have you ever said something to the effect that, excuse me, at its core, the right to work movement is deeply racist?
Senator, I believe that in a number of speeches that I gave in my capacity as general counsel of SEIU, I spoke about.
I mean, did you say that?
Senator, I believe I spoke about the historic.
No, that's not. I'm asking, did you say at its core the right to work movement is deeply racist? Because my state is a right to work state. You're going to be on the Fourth Circuit.
I spoke about the historic roots
Can
of
you
the
tell
right
me
to work.
yes or no that you said this? I mean, you either said it or you didn't.
The speech that you were referencing was a
Never
speech.
mind. Mr. Mangi, are you familiar with the Center for Security, Race, and Rights at Rutgers Law School?
I am, Senator.
Okay, were you on that board?
I was on an advisory
From
board.
Yeah, advisory board from 2019 to 2023.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with a symposium on the 20 years since 9/11, whose narrative, the exceptionalism of 9/11, is a panel talking about 9/11 20 years later?
I'm not familiar with that, Senator, no.
Okay, you don't know anything about it?
No, Senator, I was on an advisory board which met once a year, and its goal was to talk about what areas of academic focus would be useful for the
You're
Senate.
not aware that the board that you're advising was one of the co-sponsors whose narrative 20 years later that had panelists, including someone who was convicted for providing support to Islamic Jihad?
Senator, I've never heard of that event. I don't know anything about it. This was not a board of directors. This was an
No,
advisory board.
I'm just trying to figure out the board you're advising. They had 3 people. One was convicted, conspiring to support Islamic Jihad, a terrorist group. The other supports a group that featured the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and Leila Khalid was the speaker. The other panelist, Mr. Bazine, was the co-founder of Students for Justice in Palestine, who has publicly called for an intifada in the United States. You don't know anything about this?
Senator, I don't know any of those people. I don't know anything about that event.
Does it seem like this is representative of the positions of the institute we're talking about? Are you shocked to find out they would do this? Now I want to introduce into the record the panelist.
Senator, this...
Would you, I don't want to belabor it, would you condemn this symposium and the people that were on it?
Senator, I have...
Because a Jewish member of the New Jersey delegation, what's his name? Josh Kutheimer was very upset. And he said it was, and the Anti-Defamation League condemned the whole symposium. Would you condemn it?
Senator, I don't know any of these people or that event. I certainly and unequivocally
Okay.
would condemn any terrorism or any people associated with it.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce this in the record. Thank you very much.
Without objection, Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you very much. Welcome to both of you. I'm delighted to see you here. Ms. Berner, you are a member of the American Law Institute, as I understand it.
Yes, I am, Senator.
Could you explain how one gets on that? Could I sign up?
My understanding is that the members of the American Law Institute are recommended anonymously by current members of the Institute, and they
On the basis of what?
on the basis of their respect in the community, of their legal prowess, of their practice of law.
It's considered a professional accolade.
That is my understanding, yes.
How many people have enjoyed being so recognized or are currently part of the American Law Institute?
Senator, sitting here today, I don't recall the exact number. I do believe the number is capped, however.
There's a terrific person in Rhode Island who followed me as United States Attorney and did a pretty fabulous job and is extremely, extremely bright and able. And she's the only person I'm aware of in Rhode Island who's a member of the American Law Institute. So you're in pretty heady company there, and I congratulate you on that. I think it's a very significant recognition by your colleagues of your ability and capability as a lawyer at the very highest levels of legal practice. So congratulations.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Mangi, you are at Patterson-Belknap, which is quite a big, powerful, and competent law firm, are you not?
Yes, Senator.
And you have done considerable pro bono work for that firm.
Yes, Senator.
Does the firm let anybody go running off and do pro bono work, or do they have a process for making sure that the pro bono work that comes out of the firm is high quality?
Senator Patterson-Belknap has a storied history of pro bono work, and work is organized through a pro bono committee such that all work has the approval of the firm before any pro bono projects are taken on.
So the firm takes a pretty significant degree of pride in its pro bono work?
Absolutely, Senator. Patterson in some years has been ranked #1 in the country for pro bono commitment. We're very proud of that.
And can anyone in the firm jump up and do a pro bono case, or do they need to go and get the approval of the members of the firm who've been assigned to police the quality of the pro bono work?
Senator, cases are all approved through a pro bono committee, but the firm has had 100% participation for many, many years.
And how many times have you been selected to serve as pro bono counsel by the firm?
I don't have a count, Senator. I've done many, many pro bono cases. I've done pro bono work every year since I started at the firm in 2000.
I would like to ask both of you the same question. You are headed for appellate courts. We have a Supreme Court, just to put the pin on the issue, that has taken up fact-finding as an activity. In my view, fact-finding belongs at the district court level, and very often when facts are found and an appellate court believes that they have been found erroneously, that in fact clear error has been committed, the solution to that problem is to refer it back to the district court for further proceedings. What is your view of the role of an appellate court in original fact-finding?
Senator, thank you for the question. The role of federal appellate judges is a limited one. The role of the judge is to review the record that has been created in the lower court, to carefully research the law, and to apply the facts to the law.
Sua sponte fact-finding is or is not a part of that responsibility?
Senator, it is my belief that that would not be appropriate for a Court of Appeals judge to find facts. The role of the judge is to review the facts as they have been developed by the lower court and to review any findings of fact under a very deferential, clear error standard.
Mr. Mangi, 4 seconds.
Senator, having tried many cases the factual mosaic in the trial court is incredibly rich, and it is only in the trial court that you can set forth that level of detail.
Thank you, Chairman. Wish you both well.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to both of you for being here. Ms. Berner, I'd like to start with you, if that's okay. In March of 2020, would have been just before the COVID pandemic, changed all sorts of things that year. You spoke at Rutgers at an event on economic justice. As part of your speech, you criticized the Republicans on this committee, comparing us to union busters. Now, you stated as follows, and I quote, "Despite the fact that multiple women credibly accused Kavanaugh of having sexually assaulted them, Senate Republicans allowed only one woman to come forward to testify. They ignored or belittled the other accusers. The fact that Dr. Ford was only one person allowed Republicans to pretend the situation was he said, she said. And these techniques were taken directly from the playbook of anti-union employers during union organizing campaigns. Now, I assume that you would have thought it would be more fair to the parties to have a panel of any person inclined to throw accusations at then Judge, now Justice Kavanaugh. Is that correct? Is that what you were saying?
Senator, good morning. Thank you for your question. When I made that speech, I was speaking at Rutgers University in my capacity as General Counsel of the Service Employees International Union.
Right, but it was you speaking, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in response to my question, is that what you're saying? It would have been more fair to just put anybody up there willing to throw accusations at him?
Senator, I believe it falls to the members of this committee to decide and determine how judicial confirmation hearings take place. What I can tell you is that I believe Justice Kavanaugh, as every other justice of the Supreme Court, was legitimately confirmed. And were I to be so fortunate as to be confirmed, I would follow his opinions and the opinions of every justice.
Okay. I do take issue with your suggestion that we ignored or belittled anyone. I sit on this committee. I sat on this committee then. We went to great lengths to make sure that that we heard accusations. Now, would you consider a person's involvement in a system of covered-up sexual harassment something that should be disclosed in a nominations hearing?
Senator, the system for disclosure is quite lengthy. I know my colleague and I participated in lengthy reviews of our records and background investigations, and I trust the members of this committee to determine the appropriate process for review of nominees.
Now, your actions dealing with an SEIU sexual harassment scandal were outlined in an expose published by the Payday Report, a pro-labor website, in 2019. Whether or not you believe numerous women who accused the SEIU executives of sexual harassment, do you think it would have been important for you to disclose to this committee your involvement in that scandal?
Senator, I was general counsel. I was counsel to the Service Employees International Union at the time of the events that you are referencing. And as a lawyer for my client, I zealously advocated for my client in those matters as in every other matter.
Sure. Now, one of the women who was alleging to have been the victim of misconduct, sexual misconduct, by several of the men in leadership roles, in roles of significant authority within SEIU, including her SEIE UHW division director, who wrote a letter to which she responded. Now, in that letter, she begged you to come to a sworn deposition where she would be testifying. She would be providing sworn testimony about the alleged assaults against her by SEIU directors and executives so that you could reach your own conclusion as to whether there were problems within the union. Now, you responded, declining to attend or even investigate the matter, writing as follows, quote, "Because each local SEIU employs its own staff and sets its own personnel policies and protocols, the International Union does not have a direct role in investigating allegations or concerns that may arise in local unions regarding personnel matters. You also encouraged her to continue engaging with local staff. Primarily, what that meant was continuing to engage with the person she was accusing, with the guy she had accused of victimizing her. So why didn't you disclose your involvement in this issue, including and especially that part? I mean, that's not a realistic option, is it? To tell the victim, go talk to the person who's messing with you, who's harassing you, who's breaking the law. You didn't disclose that to the committee, did you?
Senator, I faithfully complied with all of the requests asked of me and required of me of disclosures. In my 25 years of practice of law, I have handled hundreds of matters, and I have done so zealously, as has been my professional obligation as an advocate. And I understand that sitting before you today, I am seeking a position as a neutral, and I would take the transition to that new position seriously and faithfully, and any position that I had taken in the past on behalf of a client would not influence any decision that I would make were I so fortunate as to be confirmed.
Dave Regan, who's still the president of that union, and still a vice president, he was one of the men most often accused, and he was allowed to use the union members' dues to defend himself. You think that was an appropriate use of the members' dues?
Senator, I am not counsel to the local union that you are referring to, and I'm not familiar with the facts that you referenced.
I see my time's expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Booker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get into matters of the law, Mr. Mangi, you clearly had a more distinguished academic career at Oxford than I did, but I was a starting member of the Oxford National Championship basketball team. Do you have any rivalry in my athletic prowess?
I do, Senator Booker.
You do?
I played cricket and field hockey, which, let me say, is not only for women. It is also a men's game in many parts of the world. And I got the Roger Bannister Scholarship for Academics and Sports.
Sir, I'm excited to support your nomination, but I just want to say for the record, I don't like you. You represent, have sat on advisory boards and boards of lots of organizations. I just want to know, do you support all the views of organizations you've sat on the board of?
Certainly not.
And yet, why would you continue to stay on a board if that organization doesn't fit fully within your beliefs?
Senator, I think it's critically important to have open discussion about difficult issues, and where my views differ from people, and they often do, to express my views in the hopes that I can convince people and draw them to my side of a debate or a position.
I've supported the ACLU in the past, and I've battled with the ACLU when I was a mayor. Does it make any sense whatsoever on organizations that fight for rights and freedoms? If you are supportive of those organizations, or even financially supportive of those organizations, should we conclude that that every piece of litigation that they have brought up could be associated with your beliefs?
Certainly not.
And your clients, your pro bono clients, I know, for example, one that I've read quite a bit about, that Pastor Ramsey Nobles has written extensively about you being a person of integrity, an extraordinary lawyer. His team spent 5 years, your team, he's saying, spent 5 years investigating your his death. You won a big settlement for him, I think the biggest in the state's history in New York. Is that correct?
For his family, Senator, that's correct.
For his family, because he was killed.
Yes, sir.
While in prison. do you know he was in prison for some pretty heinous crimes?
I do.
And yet you represented him in his wrongful death.
I did.
Can I make any assumption about what your views are on the heinous, awful crimes that he committed?
Certainly not. That case, Senator, our allegations were that the individual in question was restrained after a fight, handcuffed behind his back, surrounded by officers, and then walked off a mental health ward. And he had very serious mental health issues. He suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. And after being fully restrained, handcuffed, and walked off on his own power, he arrived at the end of that walk dead or close to dead. And the evidence, the forensic evidence, suggested that he had been choked and beaten, resulting in his death. So the principle that we were looking to litigate in that case is that no one, regardless of their background, deserves that. And their crime is irrelevant to that equation.
I just found it curious years ago when I was starting to look into your record that humbled me considerably, that you just have made a lot of effort to represent people, the causes of various faiths, from denials of mosques, Catholic charities, Sikh Americans, many different faiths, many different denominations, almost as if you were making this a specialty within your work. Why is such cross-religious work so important to you?
Senator, I'm a person of faith, but one of the things that, and remember, I wasn't born American, I chose to become American, and I chose to make my life here and raise my family here. And one of the things I was so struck by is the tapestry and the mosaic of America, and all these people with all these different religious backgrounds can come together and live in harmony towards common goals. And so I thought it's important that people of faith have a voice on many of the critical issues that are before the Supreme Court and the appellate courts. And I thought there's something beautiful about so many faiths being able to come together, sometimes, in some cases, more than 150 different religious groups coming together to present a common position to the Supreme Court of the United States.
Thank you very much. And I'll just say in final conclusion, I made certain that my mother did not watch this hearing because she would have asked me why didn't I achieve more in my academic career. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
It's a question on the mind of many of your colleagues, too. Senator Cotton.
Ms. Berner, I want to pick up where Senator Graham left off. He read you a quote of yours where you say, at its core, the right to work movement is deeply racist. He asked you several times a simple yes or no statement. Is that what you said? And you refused to answer. So I'd like to ask you again. Did you say that the right to work movement is deeply racist?
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to answer the question. In the speech I was giving, I was speaking about a historic...
Okay, so this is what you did with Senator Graham. It is a simple yes or no question. I'm not asking you about the context of it. I'm not asking you where you did it. I'm not asking what you were wearing that day. I'm saying, did you say that the right to work movement is deeply racist, yes or no?
Senator, the speech I was giving was about a historic...
Look, you're not coming off very well. You've been overcoached on this question. You knew that it was going to be raised. It is a simple yes or no question. By refusing to answer, I guess you're telling everyone up here that the answer is yes, you just don't want to admit that. You don't want it to be on tape in this hearing.
Senator, I believe that individuals who today support the right to work laws are not racist.
So did you say the right to work movement is deeply racist?
I was speaking about the history, the original history of that movement.
Yes or no, did you say the right to work movement is deeply racist?
Historically, the roots of the...
Yes or no, did you say that line?
Senator, I don't have the line of my speech in front of me. There were many lines in that speech.
Okay. Are people in Wisconsin deeply racist? They're right to work state.
Senator, as I mentioned...
Many Wisconsinites fell in the Civil War to free slaves. Are the people of Wisconsin deeply racist?
Senator, I do not believe that it can be said of the people of a state that they are racist, no.
Is the right to work law in Wisconsin deeply racist?
Senator, I'm not aware of the history of the specific laws in that state.
Okay, Mr. Mangi, same question, or I want to return, I should say, to Senator Graham. He asked you about your affiliation as a member of the advisory board for the Center of Security, Race, and Rights at Rutgers Law School. Didn't pin down when you left that position. You said 2023, or he said, and you agreed. When exactly did you leave that position?
I believe I communicated it to the director in about June, perhaps May.
Okay. Why did you, after so many years of being affiliated with them, why did you leave in May or June?
Senator, I had views on certain academic areas that I thought the center should focus on. And my notion was that the center should be producing high-quality academic research regarding anti-Muslim bigotry that could then be used in civil rights litigation.
Okay.
The center, please.
Got it. Thank you. Senator Graham also pointed out some of the troubling events that the center has hosted, in fact, hosting someone convicted of support for terrorism. Just 3 days after Hamas's brutal atrocity against Jews in Israel, they hosted a talk at Rutgers about practicing resistance in Palestine. It opened by saying, quote, "It's impossible to give this talk without centering and reminding us how settler colonialism, and in this case particular Zionist settler colonialism, is a structure that is the provocation," end quote. Now, I agree with Senator Booker's points. You can't have attributed to you every single event or statement or conference where you sit a member of an advisory board or have in the past. So I just want to give you a chance to respond directly to that statement. Do you believe that Zionist settler colonialism was a provocation that justified Hamas's atrocity against Jews in Israel?
Senator, thank you for an opportunity to address that. Let me be very direct and unequivocal on this issue because it's a vitally important issue. The events of October 7th were horrific, a horror. The attacks on civilians were abominable and against everything that I stand for. So okay. I have no patience for any attempts to justify or defend those attacks on civilians.
Do you believe that Jews are colonial settlers in Israel?
Senator, I have the utmost respect for Jewish Americans who I have worked with deeply, who have lifted me up.
Americans, I asked about Jews living in Israel. Do you believe they're colonial settlers, Jews in Israel?
Senator, the conflict in Israel raises issues of policy. I'm
Mr.
not
Mangi,
from...
This is getting back to what I was saying with Ms. Berner. This is a simple yes or no question. Are Jews in Israel colonial settlers?
Senator, I don't feel qualified to opine on that because it's not a region whose history I've studied or where I'm from.
Ms. Berner, one final question, kind of related. You signed an amicus brief in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, also known as the Bake the Cake Bigot case, in which a man in Colorado who had a bake shop didn't want to bake a cake for a gay marriage. The Supreme Court ruled in his favor. Let me ask you, if pro-Hamas radicals went into a cake shop, say a Jewish bakery, and said, we want a cake on it that says Palestine will be free from the river to the sea, and it had a dagger drawn through the Star of David, would that Jewish baker be compelled to bake that cake under your view of the law?
Senator, the Supreme Court ruled in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case that the baker's right to freedom of religion gave that baker the right to deny.
To be exact, they ruled that the Colorado Commission had not applied the law neutrally. They later ruled in the 303 Creative case that a website designer had that right, but I'm asking you specifically about a cake baker, same thing, in which you said he did not have that right. Would a Jewish baker be compelled to make a cake that says Palestine will be free from the river to the sea with a dagger through the Star of David?
Senator, the Supreme Court in the Bostock case did not rule along the lines of, in the Masterpiece Cake case, did not rule along the lines that was advocated by my client. The brief that you are referencing was a brief that I submitted on behalf of my client. And were I to be so fortunate to be confirmed, I would, of course, apply that Supreme Court precedent like every other Supreme Court precedent or Fourth Circuit precedent that was relevant to the facts that came before me.
Well, I guess if you're confirmed, we'll have to see if pro-Hamas radicals want such a cake baked.
Senator Klobuchar.
I actually think Senator Butler was here before me, so. Yes, I'm just being nice. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry.
When the
Your niceness,
newest senator gets,
your niceness is rewarded, Senator Butler.
you know. Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Good morning, and congratulations to both of you. Ms. Berner, you've been asked twice about a speech that you gave, and I think it worth allowing you to actually respond to the question.
Thank you, Senator Butler, for the opportunity to respond. In the speech that I gave at Rutgers University, I was speaking about the historic underpinnings of the original right-to-work laws in the in the 1940s, which were begun in southern states, and the initial proponents of those laws proposed them and argued that white workers should not be compelled to be in the same organization as black workers, and that was what I was speaking about at Rutgers at that speech.
Thank you for providing that context and complete answer. There was also a question that was directed to you relative to actions in a case at a local union. Can you describe the role of local union legal staff in comparison to the role that you had as general counsel for the National SEIU?
Thank you. The Service Employees International Union represents 2 million workers across every state in this country, and Puerto Rico and Canada as well. And each member of the union is a member of a locally chartered affiliate union. Each local union has its own council and its own constitution and governing body. I am general counsel of the International Union, and in that capacity, I do not provide, I am not responsible for, nor do I advocate on behalf of local unions, except when I am called upon to do so in specific instances. The specific instances that were referenced were not instances that I was personally counsel to. To the contrary, I was counsel to the International Union at that time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mangi. It is astonishing to me that in addition to your athletic prowess, that you have been able to dedicate so many hours to your pro bono work. I'd be curious, beyond your sports competitions with my colleague, if you could share with me any in the committee if there's any cases that may stand out for you in those pro bono hours. It is more than a sacrifice of time. You are then choosing to not spend time with your lovely children and wife. And so I'd love to hear, and for the committee to hear, just get a sense of the dedication that you have given to your community.
Senator, the only sacrifice involved was from my partners, who enabled me to spend so much time that I could have been billing on these matters. But I'd like to tell you about the Islamic Society of Basking Ridge in New Jersey. This was a small group of local Muslims who had been in town for a very long time. And they're in a town that's filled with houses of worship, but they had no place to pray of their own. They had to carry prayer rugs to a community center, set up every week, break down, and do that for many years. And when they wanted to set up their own mosque, they were met with an explosion of hatred and bigotry. And they were put through 4 years and 39 hearings before a local planning board with every kind of Picayune and Kafkaesque objection to the height of a fence or the depth of a tree line that you can imagine. And the same people who were cross-examining them about those issues in the planning board were outside of the planning board talking about their true reasons for opposing, all of which had to do with Islam and Muslims. So it was a great honor to represent that group, and it was the courage of the people that are part of that. Muhammad Ali Chaudhry was the president of that group. And they said, look, this is America. We're going to stand up for our rights in the courts. and we're going to win. And they did. And it was a display of what courage in the legal system can get for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to invoke Rule 19. The junior senator from California does not know that she cannot insult the honor of her colleagues directly, and to presume that my athletic prowess was not equal to was a direct assault on my honor.
Thank you for defending yourself again. Senator Kennedy.
Ms. Berner, you didn't tell Senator Graham the truth, did you?
Senator, I took an oath to tell the truth, and I have done so faithfully.
Now, on February 22nd, 2018, you spoke to the American Constitution Society, and this is what you said. The right to work movement is deeply racist. You said that, didn't you?
Senator, I do not have that speech in front of me. I have spoken on a number of occasions about the
You
history.
turned your notes over to us. You didn't read them before you turned them over?
Senator, I've spoken on a number of occasions about the history. I was not speaking about...
Are you saying that you didn't say that?
Senator, I've spoken on a number of occasions about the history.
Are you saying that you didn't say that?
I have turned over all of my notes from my speeches.
I don't think you're telling the truth, Ms. Berner. Let me ask you another question. Do you remember Mindy Sturgey?
No, sir, I do not remember.
I'm embarrassed you don't remember her. She was one of your union members. She alleged that she was the victim of sexual discrimination at one of your local unions. This is what she said. She alleged that one of the executives there asked her, quote, if she enjoyed rough sex and bondage. She said that the chapter president, Mr. Dave Regan, asked her, quote, does the carpet match the drapes? And, quote, what would you do for some jewelry? She alleged that Mr. Regan told another staffer, quote, that the only way she is getting a job is if she sucks my member of the male anatomy. Another employee said in an affidavit that Mr. Reagan, quote, went around asking women if he could sniff their panties, close quote, at an October 2017 work party. She said another executive, quote, grabbed my upper thigh while I was driving. And she wrote you and asked you to investigate. And you said no, didn't you?
Senator, I have dedicated my career to representing women and families. That has been my work.
You said no, didn't you?
Senator,
you told her that let her own chapter represent or investigate its own misconduct, didn't you?
Senator, I'm going to give you additional time, but I want the witness to be able to fully answer the question.
Senator, the letter that you are quoting from, I wrote in my capacity as counsel to my client. It was the position of my client, and I was acting as an advocate.
You refused to investigate, though, didn't you?
Senator, I believe that I have faithfully adhered to my obligations as an attorney for my client.
I don't think Ms. Sturgis would agree with you. In fact, Mr. Reagan, the chapter president, is still the president, isn't he?
I believe.
You don't even know?
Dave Reagan is the president of one of our local union, of one of SEIU's local unions, yes.
Wow. Mr. Mangi. I just want to be sure I understand your testimony, sir. And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
From 2019 to 2023, you were a board member of the Center for Security, Race and Rights at Rutgers Law School. Is that right?
I was a member of an advisory board, Senator.
Right. Most boards advise, don't they?
Well, Senator, boards of directors govern an institution. Advisory boards do not have a governance role. They merely provide counsel.
Do you know of any boards that don't offer advice?
Well, they're different in their legal function.
Okay. Y'all held an event on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attack on America. You held an event on the 20th anniversary attack, 9/11 attack on America. And you invited as speakers. Your first speaker was Dr. Sami Al-Arian. He was convicted of conspiring to provide material support, convicted in a court, to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And the Islamic Jihad participated in the October 7th massacre and mass rape. Your second speaker was Dr. Rahab Abdulhadi, who has organized panels for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. One terrorist, Leila Khalad. Ms. Khalad hijacked planes. You invited her as a speaker, or her mentor as a speaker. The third speaker you invited, Mr. Hatim Bazilian, was the co-founder of Students for Justice in Palestine and has publicly called for an intifada in the United States. Is this the way you celebrate 9/11? Have I said anything that was inaccurate?
Yes, Senator.
Tell me.
Senator, my involvement with the Center at Rutgers Law School, which is a preeminent law school in the state of New Jersey,
I can tell,
is on an advisory board that, when my role was limited to providing advice on academic areas of research, primarily through a meeting held once a year. With regard to the event that you are describing, I've never heard of that event prior to today. It was never presented to the advisory board that I was part of. I know nothing about it. I know nothing about the speakers. I've never heard of any of those people.
How could you sit on an organization that would invite these terrorists, convicted terrorists, Counselor?
Senator, it is an advisory...
You didn't resign.
Senator, I never heard of that event until today. It is an advisory board where my role...
So you just had an epiphany today?
Senator, your time has expired.
May I respond?
Would you like to complete your answer?
Yes. I have never heard of this event prior today. It had nothing to do with my role on an advisory board.
But you're on the board.
Senator Klobuchar.
Advisory board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just keep thinking about all of us having gone to schools or served on committees or doing things that are not, when we're not the decision makers about things, and if we were all held responsible for that, I don't think any of us would be up here. So I want to start with you, Mr. Mangi. Could you talk about your years of experience, your trailblazing nomination we know about? Can you talk a little bit, I see your proud family behind you, of your family's history and how that has influenced your view of the rule of law?
Thank you, Senator. Senator, I grew up in Pakistan, and that is a country, the people of whom I love dearly. It's part of my heritage, it's part of my history. But a big part of my experience growing up was seeing that in that country, if your rights are violated, there is often no recourse, there is no remedy, and the legal system will not come to your aid. Indeed, the legal system will often be the one that's oppressing you in the first place, particularly if you're a woman or a minority. And that experience impressed upon me so deeply the value of being in a country and in a place where if your rights have been trampled upon, like in the case of the Islamic Society of Basking Ridge I mentioned earlier, you can go to the courts and you can get recourse. And for me, that is what the conception of justice is all about. And let me add, Senator, responding to your predicate, I have a history of 23 years now in this country as a lawyer working on various causes that are important to me. And I'm ready to...
In the private sector, correct? For many
Yes, Senator. And I'm happy to answer for any decision I've made, any statement I have made. But it has to be something that I've done.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And we do appreciate, I'm sure you've heard, the mosque in Minnesota that got bombed. FBI actually investigated, found the guy that did it. So appreciate your work on that front, as does our Muslim community. Ms. Berner, one thing we haven't talked much about is your work on domestic violence. And the committee received a letter of support for your nomination from the National Task Force to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, which praised your background and experience with issues of domestic violence and sexual assault. Former prosecutor, we worked on a lot of these cases, had a domestic violence service center in my office that was very well known nationally. Can you talk more about your work to protect victims of domestic violence and sexual assault?
Good morning, Senator, and thank you for your question. Before I went to law school, I was the director of a national organization in Israel to fight domestic violence and sexual assault of women. And it was in that capacity that I first came to meet attorneys. I had had no lawyers in my family, and I had not previously known any attorneys. And I saw the power that the law can bring to protect those who are not always able to protect themselves, to advocate on behalf of women and families and children. And I was inspired by that work to apply to law school and to become a lawyer.
Okay, very good. And I know the committee received a letter of support for your nomination from the International Brotherhood of Police Officers. They praised your work on behalf of law enforcement, as well as your excellent legal talent, deep listening skills, and collaborative and fair approach. Can you talk about the work that you've done in law enforcement outside of domestic violence?
Yes, Senator, I have been proud to represent tens of thousands of police officers and correctional officers from around the United States. I have deep respect for their role in our society, their courage, and their commitment to protect communities. And it has been my honor to protect those members of SEIU and to work closely with union members from every industry in our country. And I am humbled by the support from different unions that have come to support my nomination, including police unions and firefighters and other unions that have come to support my nomination. It has been truly humbling.
Thank you very much.
Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to each of you on your nominations. Ms. Berner, I do want to come to you. There's been much discussion about your work as General Counsel at the SEIU, and I am the top Republican on the Human Rights and the Law Subcommittee. We put a lot of work into looking at the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, sexual assault issue. And Senator Gillibrand and I just recently in the last year passed a piece of legislation, the Speak Out Act, which would disallow pre-dispute non-disclosure agreements in these cases of sexual assault. So I know that Senator Lee and Senator Kennedy have asked you about this issue, and I'm going to come back to you on it because it is extremely concerning to me. And when we look at the courts, when we look at the federal government, when we look at corporations, and we discussed this issue yesterday in a hearing on corporate conduct, the fact that this is continuing is of concern to us. In your actions, what we see as being your actions in the case with Ms. Sturgis, with Mr. Regan, is incredibly disturbing because it appears that the union knew about these allegations and the union failed to take action. And then they continued to support the men that had carried out these allegations. And when you look at the conduct of Mr. Regan and the fact that he is still there, and the fact that he was known, this wasn't something that was hearsay, he was known for going to conferences, for getting drunk at the conference, and inappropriately dancing with female employees. So this was known behavior and conduct. And what it appears is this is just the tip of the iceberg with what took place at the SEIU. And one of Mr. Regan's top lieutenant, Stan Lyles, was also accused of misconduct. So you can see our concern. It looks like this conduct was standard operating procedure and that it was accepted and expected. And you did nothing about it. And that is the impression that is being given to us, and your hesitancy to answer these questions and come forward with an answer really does cause us concern. Now, in responding to Mr. Lyle's accuser, Mindy Sturge, you said that the matter was best left to be investigated by the local SEIU, the same union whose president, Ms. Sturge, was suing for sexual misconduct. So this is inconceivable. What was your expectation about this woman getting a fair outcome from having the abuser actually handle the investigation? Did you expect him to say, "I was wrong"? Did you expect him to handle it fairly? Because the answer would be, of course the guy's not going to be fair because the woman is accusing him. And this is exactly why we moved forward with cleaning this process up. So the appearance to us is that you were a party to this allowing this bad conduct. And it causes me pain to think that at a time when we're trying to get to the bottom of what's happening with this sexual assault, with these sex trafficking rings, that you as a judge would sit on a federal bench and a woman who is coming before you to have justice would not be given a fair shot at that justice. So do you regret this? Do you think these people should be removed? What is your position, and how would you like to clarify the record? Because right now, allowing this misconduct, pushing it to the abuser to handle a case of the accuser, this is something that is unacceptable.
Senator, I have dedicated my career to representing women and families, and I take every allegation of sexual assault and sexual misconduct seriously, whether levied at my client or whether it is an allegation.
This is a stock remark, and Mr. Chairman, I know I'm over time, but we have got to get to the bottom.
Senator, I'm going to give her the right to complete her answer.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Senator, what I can tell you is that I take all allegations of sexual assault seriously, that I have faithfully carried out my role as an advocate, and that if I were so fortunate as to be confirmed, any position that I had taken on behalf of a client would not be would not have any relevance to any decision that I made as a judge. My position is taken as an advocate. I was advocating on behalf of my client, and if I were to be confirmed, I would be in the role of a neutral, where I would faithfully apply the relevant precedent to the facts in the case before me, and I would do as I have done throughout my career.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I sit here listening to all of these questions, I'm glad that my colleagues care about nominees who come before us who may not provide the kind of support for people who are making allegations of sexual harassment. As far as I'm concerned, we did not do that adequately during the Kavanaugh hearings, but we obviously have a difference of opinion as to who should have been called as witnesses before this committee. So, to begin, I ask all nominees the following two initial questions because we need to ascertain that all of the nominees would never engage in this kind of conduct. So my initial questions, and I know you are familiar with the fact that I asked these two questions. So I ask both of you, starting with Ms. Berger. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
Listening to both of you, it is very clear in my mind that you represented your various clients very zealously. And we've had, believe me, many nominees of a former president who I very much questioned where they were coming from, whether they would be able to set aside their ideological, very clear ideological perspectives and making decisions based on a fair assessment, an objective assessment of the case before them. And listening to both of you, I believe that both of you would be able to do that. I'm very impressed with your backgrounds. And by the way, Ms. Berner, I appreciate the fact that your family has come all the way from Israel to support you. Family is obviously really important to you. And you mentioned a concept, tikkun olam. It's a Jewish phrase. Would you like to just expound a little bit how you seek to live up to this phrase?
Thank you, Senator. Tikkun olam is a Hebrew phrase that means repairing the world. And in my work as a lawyer, I have represented individuals who have not always had a voice in our society. Mm-hmm. And in that capacity, I believe that I have fulfilled the Jewish mandate to repair the world. If I were so fortunate as to be confirmed as a judge, I would step into a different role, to take part in a system of justice that is truly a model. And I would be committed deeply to treating each litigant fairly and to approach every case with an open mind and to faithfully apply the law. And that, too, would be a form of tikkun olam.
Mr. Mangi?
Mangi, Senator.
Mangi,
thank
sorry.
you.
You are not Jewish, but I believe that you also aspire to make the world a better place. And I was referring to the fact that you have spent some 4,000 hours representing clients in pro bono cases. And I don't know how much you charge by the hour, but you probably charge more than $200 an hour. And so when I did the math, that's almost $1 million worth of pro bono work for people who face religious discrimination, employment discrimination. And you also took asylum cases. Can you tell this committee why this pro bono work is so important to you? And thank you very much for explaining that pro bono work means a lot to your law firm, and that they don't just let anybody take on this kind of work, but they have faith in you to do the work. Can you explain why this work is so important to you?
Certainly, Senator. Senator, in a large New York law firm, as a partner at that law firm, you have command of tremendous resources, incredibly talented, energetic young associates, resources to pay for things like expert witnesses and so on. So if you have an opportunity to bring those resources to bear on the side of just causes, then there can be no better way to participate in the civic life of our country. While our justice system is a great and wonderful thing, paucity of resources can still impact what sort of justice you can access. So being able to bring those resources to bear on critical issues is deeply satisfying to me and indeed to everyone at my law firm, which is why it's an embedded part of our culture.
Thank you very much. And I'm also really grateful that you believe in religious diversity, and as the only Buddhist ever to be elected to the United States Senate, thank you for your advocacy on behalf of religious diversity.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Rono. Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mangi, last week, the American people were horrified to watch the testimony of the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and Penn, where all three of them failed to speak clearly denouncing anti-Semitism. All three of them had difficulty, in fact, refused to say that calls for genocide of the Jewish people constitute harassment at their policies. One of those three presidents has since resigned. I think the other two are likely to resign and should resign. I will say, when I look at your record, I am troubled by a number of things, but I am perhaps most troubled by the fact that you served as an advisory board member for the Center for Security, Race, and Rights at Rutgers Law School from 2019 to 2023. And sadly, I think that center embraces the same extremism and myopia that we saw on display from the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and Penn. While you were a board member, on May 29th, 2021, Professor Sahar Aziz, who's the director of the center on which you served as an advisory board member, signed a letter which was posted on the center's website, which read, quote, "A ceasefire does not end the colonial conditions of the structural violence and inequality that Palestinians live under." It goes on to say, quote, "The Palestinian rights to freedom, security in their homes, to return, self-determination, and to be free of violent occupation are well established under international law. The language of both-sidedness, of timeliness, or religious conflict, with moments of escalation, erases the military, economic, media, and diplomatic power that Israel, as an occupying force, has over Palestine." Do you agree with those sentiments?
Senator Cruz, let me say first, with regard to the genocide issue that you raised, any calls for genocide of any people are absolutely horrific. Horrific. And there could be nothing that is more contrary and antithetical to everything that I stand for. Now, with regard to the center, as I mentioned earlier, I served on an advisory board. Its function was to meet approximately once a year and to focus on what areas of academic research at Rutgers Law School might be productive to engage in. For example...
So you signed up to be on an advisory board and you just didn't know what they were doing? You just didn't treat the responsibility very seriously?
The responsibility, Senator, was to advise on areas of academic research, not on the day-to-day...
So I want to return, you're a practicing lawyer, I want to return to the question I asked.
Yes.
Which is, do you agree with the sentiments that I just read you from the director of the center on whose advisory board you served?
Senator, I have no knowledge of that speech or statements that you're referencing.
Do you believe that Israel is an occupying force in Palestine?
Senator, the history of that region is very complex, and I don't claim to be an expert in it.
All right, let me ask you this. Same letter posted by the same director, quote, "We are in awe of the Palestinian struggle to resist violent occupation, removal, erasure, and the expansion of Israeli settler colonialism." Do you agree with that sentiment?
I'll give you the same answer, Senator.
You don't know?
Which is, that is a very complex history in the region.
It means context?
No, it means it is a history that is the domain of policymakers.
So no, it is not. Israel is not a violent occupier engaged in settler colonialism. That is a political statement. And you are unwilling to disagree with it, which suggests there's a reason you were on that board. There was a reason. It's actually quite remarkable that you're not even willing to disclaim the statement, "We're in awe of the Palestinian struggle to resist in light of October 7th.
Senator, I stated this earlier, but let me repeat it because I think it's critically important.
Do you condemn the atrocities of the Hamas terrorists?
Yes, that's what I was about to address, Senator.
And is there any justification? Is there any justification for those atrocities?
Senator, I'll repeat myself. The events of October 7th were a horror involving the deaths of innocent civilians. That is contrary.
I'm going to ask the question again. Is there any justification for those atrocities?
That was going to be my next sentence, Senator, which is, I have no patience, none, for any attempts to justify or defend those events.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think about the fact that the center on whose board you served hosted, on the 20th anniversary of September 11th, an event with a convicted terrorist who pleaded guilty? Dr. Sami al-Iranian was convicted of conspiracy to contribute services or benefits to a terrorist organization, and Dr. Hatem Bazian explicitly called for intifada against the United States. Do you agree with those sentiments?
Senator, I'd like to say two things on that point. Number one, on 9/11, I was in New York. I saw what happened. It was my city that was attacked. Number two, I've never heard of this event prior to today. It was never brought to the advisory board, which meant once a year to talk about academic issues.
Are you willing to denounce the center on whose board you served inviting a convicted terrorist, a supporter of Palestinian Islamic Jihad? By the way, Palestinian Islamic Jihad participated in the October 7th atrocities. Are you willing to condemn their inviting a supporter of their to attack America and to support the reasons for the September 11th attacks?
Senator, I don't think anyone can feel more strongly about what happened on 9/11 than someone who was there, who saw with their own eyes smoke billowing from their towers.
But you won't condemn this.
Senator, let him complete his answer, would you? Your time
He's
is
filibustering and not answering
He's
questions.
not
And so I'm going to ask him to answer the question I ask instead of giving a speech on a different topic. And Mr. Chairman, you do this all the time. When a question is going badly for a Democrat witness, you jump in and try to save the witness. He knows how to answer a question. When I ask a question, he gives a speech on a different topic because he doesn't want to answer it. My question is simple. Do you condemn this event that was celebrating Palestinian Islamic Jihad? Yes or no?
You should not bully the witnesses nor try to bully members of the committee.
Asking a question is not bullying.
Complete your answer, please.
Thank you, Chair Durbin. I'll answer your question very directly, Senator Cruz. I will condemn without equivocation any terrorism, any terrorist, or any act of terrorism, or any defense of any act of terrorism. I don't know
this event.
I don't know anything about this event or who these people are. I've never heard of any of them. If someone on there is a terrorist, I condemn them.
I want to ask give you some opportunity to follow up with some of the questions. The underlying concern that some of my colleagues have is a valid concern. If a person who's going to serve on the judge is advocating terrorism or supports terrorism, or sexual misconduct, then that would be a disqualifier. But on the other hand, if a person has worked in an organization for a significant period of time, they're not involved in every single personnel issue, or if a person has a Muslim background and served as an advisory board, it doesn't necessarily mean they subscribe or even are aware of the views of everybody who shows up. And I'll say, I served as a public defender, and I represented some really bad people who did some really bad things. And in some of my political life, people attacked me for my defending people that the court assigned me to represent, ascribing to me an advocacy of the conduct as opposed to an advocacy of the right that our Constitution provides people for a fair defense. And I'm getting a sense that's happening to some extent to each of you. So, Mr. Mangi, I'll just ask you first. That was an eloquent statement about how your experience in Pakistan and how you saw that there was not an ability to have rights respected because there wasn't the institutions of the rule of law there. I found that quite inspiring. But just flat out, is there any hesitation on your part to condemn genocide?
No.
And is there any hesitation on your part to condemn any person who commits terrorist activities and violence towards innocent people?
Senator, no hesitation whatsoever. And let me add that if anyone has aspirations to attack minority communities or indeed to attack the Jewish community here in America, they'd have to go through me first.
Right. And so you condemn what Hamas did to innocent Israelis on October 7th, and you condemn what terrorists did to New York on 9/11.
Of course.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Berner, you are being, you served 17 years at SEIU.
I came to SEIU as an attorney in 2006, and I have served as its general counsel since 2017.
All right, and then you've been asked some questions by my colleague, Ms. Blackburn, about apparently a personnel incident. Do you want to just elaborate on what it is you knew or didn't know about that?
Senator, the personnel incident that I was asked about did not occur at SEIU.
Yeah.
The incident occurred at one of SEIU's local affiliates, which are separately incorporated, separately managed, and separately governed. What I will say is that my involvement in any matter on behalf of my client would be the topic of course, attorney-client privilege. I have served as a zealous advocate for my client, and in my 25 years of practicing law, I have represented corporations and unions. I've represented individuals as both defendants and plaintiffs, and in every case, I have fulfilled my obligation as a lawyer to be a zealous advocate. And I understand that the role of a judge is very different.
Right. And has there ever been a time on a personnel matter where you were responsible for the supervision of an employee where an allegation of sexual misconduct was brought to your attention that you disregarded?
No, Senator.
Okay, thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Welch. Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to the nominees. Thanks for being here. Mr. Mangi, if I could just start with you, I just want to make sure I understood your answers to my colleagues, including Senator Cruz. Let me just read you something. I just want to know if you agree with this or not. This should be simple. Here's a statement. The demand to center Israel's right to self-defense, that's in scare quotes, self-defense, erases the colonial context and delegitimizes the Palestinian right to resistance. We are in awe of the Palestinian struggle to resist violent occupation, removal, erasure, and the expansion of Israeli settler colonialism. Do you agree with that, yes or no? I realize you didn't write it, and you may not know who the author is, may never have heard of these people before. I just want to know, does this represent your view, yes or no?
Senator, any attempt to justify what happened on October 7th, I have absolutely no...
Well, that's not the context here. This is talking about any discussion of Israel's right to self-defense erases the colonial context. It's calling Israel a colonial state. So could we just answer my question? Do you agree with this, yes or no?
Senator, I don't claim to be an expert on the Middle East. I don't have the historic or regional expertise.
Sounds like a maybe. That's a maybe? Maybe you agree? Can we get a yes or a no?
Each say this is a policy question or a question for foreign experts.
Wait, that's what I don't understand. By the way, this was written by the director of the center you sat on the board of, that you advised. This is the director, not some random professor, the director, who published it in an open letter. So when you say it's a policy, what's the policy about calling Israel a violent settler colonialist state? Why is that a policy question?
Senator, that is not a statement that I had any involvement with.
Okay, good. So would you condemn it then? You say this does not represent your views.
Senator, I have no basis as a judicial nominee to cast views on the Middle East or what does or does not happen
This
there.
is what you're not answering my question. I'm asking you whether this individual who said that Israel was a violent settler colonial state, I'm just trying to get you to say, do you agree with that or not? And I've asked you now 4 different times, 4 different ways. You're not answering me. Why is that? Why can't you just say, no, I don't agree with this? Let's try again.
Yeah.
Do you agree with this statement, yes or no?
Senator, in order to agree or disagree with any statement, I need to have a sufficient factual background to assess it.
So in other words, you can't say whether or not Israel is a violent colonial state. You think that's a difficult question?
Oh, God. That is not an issue with which I have any expertise.
Is the Holocaust also a difficult question? Does that need context?
No.
Is that a policy question?
I am quite happy to address the Holocaust, Senator.
Why aren't you happy to address this then? Why is it that an individual in the center that you directed who calls Israel a violent colonialist state, those are racist comments, why can't you condemn that? I don't understand it. You won't answer my questions, you won't answer Senator Cruz's questions, you wouldn't answer Senator Kennedy's questions. I don't understand why this is complicated.
Senator, I'm Pakistani. I didn't grow up in the Middle East.
I didn't either. I didn't either, but that doesn't mean that I can't say that somebody who says that a Jewish state is a violent colonialist enterprise is wrong. This isn't a policy question, it's a moral question. This is a moral issue.
Senator, I am not in a position to make any policy pronouncements about actions in the Middle East.
Does Israel have a right to exist?
Yes.
Should American Jews be safe in their homes and on their campuses?
Senator, there is
Just
no
yes
one.
or no, please. Spare me the lectures. Yes or no? Did you advise against this letter? You sat on the advisory board. Did you advise against it?
I never even heard of that letter.
How is that possible? What did you do on this board for all these years? This was years before you left it.
It's an advisory board that met once a year to talk about academic research.
Do you not think it's relevant to the setting in the academy that Jewish students might feel unsafe when they have a tenured professor who's the director of a center saying that Israel is a violent colonialist state? Do you think that may not have an effect on the educational environment?
Senator, I abhor.
But you didn't care to look into it?
May I respond?
But I've heard your answers, and they're all move over here, look over here. You're not answering any of my questions. And I can't figure out why. I can't figure out why you won't just say that this was wrong. So you didn't advise against it. You didn't condemn it. You didn't look into the center's activities. Do you regret that? Do you regret not at the time taking a moral stand against these frankly racist condemnations of Jewish Americans, Jewish people in the state of Israel? Do you think it was wrong for you to be silent?
Senator, I didn't know anything about
Why
it.
didn't you? Didn't you have a moral obligation to know about a center that you sat on the board of for years, whose director was calling Jewish people colonialist, violent settlers? Do you not have a moral obligation to know and say something?
That is not the function of an academic advisory board, but I abhor.
But it is the function of a responsible jurist and a responsible citizen. And I would just suggest to you that you failed it. And your inability to just say, this was wrong, this shouldn't have been said, this kind of language and rhetoric is what has led directly to Jewish American students now being called out on campuses, in classrooms, told to stand up and go and stand in a corner because they need to feel what it's like to be colonized. I'm sure you've seen the reports of this happening across the country. This is happening now.
Senator, your time's expired. Mr. Mangi, would you like to complete an answer?
Thank you, Chair Durbin. Any acts of anti-Semitism or any bigotry, including anti-Muslim bigotry, on college campuses is abhorrent. My children will be going to university soon. I want them to feel safe, and I want the children of my Jewish friends and colleagues to feel safe too.
Well, you think you'll take a greater interest when your children are on campus, maybe, than you did for the last 3 years?
Senator, your time has expired. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter received December 8th, 2023, addressed to me, Senator Graham, and all committee members. It reads in part, on behalf of the 210,000 advocates of the National Council of Jewish Women, I am writing in support of the nomination of Adeel Mangi to the Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. It goes on to say, the National Council of Jewish Women believes the judiciary is best served by qualified judges who are fair-minded and independent, reflect the diversity of our nation. Adeel Mangi is just such a nominee. We strongly urge you to move expeditiously to approve this nomination and support subsequent confirmation by the full Senate. I am sorry that you have been subjected to the suggestion that you are somehow anti-Semitic or insensitive. This letter indicates those people who looked at your record feel just the opposite. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been on this committee nearly 3 years now. Well, first of all, let me thank and welcome the nominees before us today for your willingness to serve. I mentioned I've been on this committee now for almost 3 years and have been part of numerous hearings like this. I know we're not voting to confirm today and to advance to the full Senate, but I've learned this much about the Senate Judiciary Committee and these nomination hearings. You two don't just get here like that. There's certainly either an interest in serving expressed on your part and or a process by which professionals who advise members of the Senate on who would be a good member of the federal judiciary conducts some initial outreach, some initial background, some initial vetting, both of professional experience and personal experience. And if you meet that threshold, then a name is put forward to a member of the United States Senate to consider, where there's additional background and vetting that's done professionally and personally. Same for the step of names being submitted to the White House for consideration. And certainly for not just district court judges, but for circuit court judges. The White House does its share of background and vetting and research on individuals, both professionally and personally. So the fact that you two are before us for consideration says a lot about the two of you, in contrast to some of the questions and treatment that you've been subject to during the course of this hearing. Mr. Chairman, applaud the letters that you have entered into the record, and I'm inspired to submit a couple of additional ones. One from the New Jersey State Bar Association, addressed to both the chair and the ranking member of this committee in support of the nomination of Adeel Mangi. And I'll just read a sentence or two here. Time and time again, he has demonstrated a commitment to improving the law and the community through legal efforts that have supported foundational rights for those in our state. He also brings to the position the knowledge of a seasoned practitioner, and once confirmed, he will unquestionably be an asset to the U.S. Third District Court of Appeals, all those served by that court, in particular the people of our state. Ask that this letter be entered into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection.
A second letter, this one in support of Ms. Berner's nomination. We share a special bond with Nicole. Quote, all of us had the honor of clerking for Judge Betty Fitcher on the Ninth Circuit, and we are diverse in our viewpoints and backgrounds, and our careers span the breadth of the legal profession. Going on in the letter, we have no doubt that Nicole, Ms. Berner, will bring her exceptional talents to bear as a Fourth Circuit judge. Certainly she will bring her brilliant mind and tremendous work ethic, but also her commitment to ensuring that ordinary people receive the same fair hearing and equal treatment as anyone else arguing before her, signed by a few dozen former clerks of that particular court. I ask that we submit this one into the record as well.
Without objection.
And finally, a statement from the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, an entity that this committee turns to for affirmation of who may be a good nominee or not, particularly on civil rights issues, also in support of Ms. Berner for the circuit, Fourth Circuit. I don't have any questions, folks. I just wanted to kind of level set the conversation here in this hearing with the professional opinion of folks that you respect, that we respect, is much more meaningful and relevant for consideration in this decision. And thank you both and your families for supporting you in this opportunity to serve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Berner and Mr. Mangi, for being here today. And there may be some written questions sent your way, which we hope you'll respond to in a timely fashion. Thank you again, and to your friends and family for joining in this effort. You are free to go, and then we'll reset for our second panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are the nominees at the table? Yes, look, here's they are. If you please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give before this subcommittee will be the truth, this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Record reflects that they all answered in the affirmative. And so we start with Judge Bajio. You have 5 minutes to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Words cannot describe the utter awe that I feel at being here today. I thank President Biden for nominating me. I thank Senators Wyden and Merkley for supporting my nomination and for their kind remarks at the beginning of today's hearing. I thank our local Judicial Selection Committee, who put in hard work to evaluate a number of outstanding candidates and put forth their assessment to our senators. I thank my ABA evaluator, who it was truly a pleasure to get to know during this process. And lastly, I thank Chair Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and all of the honorable members of this committee for holding this hearing today. To my friends and colleagues who have supported me during this process, your encouragement will not be forgotten. To my brother and sister judges back in Multnomah County, I am grateful for your friendship and your willingness to cover extra matters in order to allow me to be here today. It is an honor to serve alongside you. I'm equally grateful to my judicial assistant and to my clerk for the quality that they bring to work each and every day. To my brother, my uncle, my aunts, my in-laws, nieces, and nephews watching from afar, thank you for your support and well wishes. And lastly, I would like to acknowledge my family who've traveled to be here with me today. My mom, my sister, my husband, and my children. They asked me not to gush about them here this morning, and at this time I will display judicial restraint by respecting their wishes. With that, Senators, I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much. Judge Briscoe.
Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you, President Biden, for nominating me to serve on the United States District Court for the Northern District of Indiana. This nomination is the highest honor of my career, and I am grateful for your trust and confidence placed in me. My home state senators, Senator Young and Senator Braun, and their staffs, thank you for your support throughout the nomination process. And to Senator Young, I am deeply humbled and grateful for your very kind introductory remarks. Also, I am especially thankful to have the opportunity to introduce my beloved family who is here with me today. My husband, Brian, he has supported me in every personal and professional goal since our teenage years. He will forever be my high school sweetheart. He is my best friend. Brian, thank you for your unconditional love and support. Our wonderful daughters, Brianna and Alexa, I thank God daily for choosing me to be their mom. They bring me so much joy. Girls, soak this moment in. Let today be a reminder that the sky is the limit. Work hard, do good, trust God, and always listen to your mother. My brother, Marcus Clark, traveled from Collierville, Tennessee. He is my biggest cheerleader. No matter my age or title, I will always be his baby sister, and I wouldn't have it any other way. My parents, Alvin and Gail Clark, are here from Olive Branch, Mississippi. They provided a foundation grounded in faith, love of country and family, and commitment to service. My parents made countless sacrifices to provide me with an excellent education. Their hard work and unwavering optimism inspire me daily. Without them, I could not have accomplished all that I have. Mom and Dad, I am so proud to be your daughter. Thank you for everything. And finally, I'd like to thank the many people praying for and encouraging me every step of the way. My family and friends watching from home, the Holy Trinity Parish and School community, Andrian High School, Valparaiso University, University of Notre Dame, and my Indiana State Court family. Senators, I look forward to your questions.
Thank you all very much. Judge Lund, you have significant judicial experience in Indiana. Oh, I'm sorry. You get to speak first. I jumped ahead.
I was all prepared.
You convinced me.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and all of the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee for holding this hearing today. Thank you, President Biden, for the profound honor of my nomination to the United States District Court for the Northern District of Indiana. Thank you, Senator Young and Senator Braun, for your support of my nomination. And thank you, Senator Young, for your kind remarks earlier today. I come before this committee as the proud daughter of an Indiana farm family. I am joined by my parents, David and Diane Hess, and my brother, Jim Hess. They are all proud Indiana farmers. My parents taught my brother and I the importance of a hard day's work, putting your faith in that which you cannot see, and approaching life with a servant's heart to your community. Mom and Dad, I am proud to be an Indiana farm kid today. I am also joined by my husband, Jeff, and our girls, Elsa and Ingrid. Jeff has been my teammate, best friend, and biggest supporter for over 20 years. Elsa and Ingrid are both incredibly smart and amazingly talented. Girls, as your mom, I look forward to the day when I can sit behind you and support you in your life's work. As for now, I want to thank Jeff and the girls for just supporting Mom, not just today, but always. I want to thank my court family watching from courthouses all across the state of Indiana. Thank you to my court staff in Elkhart Superior Court 4, to my Elkhart County judicial colleagues, and to my judicial colleagues and friends all across Indiana. It is an honor to serve as a judge in the great state of Indiana for the past 15 years. And finally, I want to publicly thank two judges that have had a profound impact on my judicial career. Judge Bill Lawrence of the United States District Court for the Southern District of Indiana, whom I clerked for, and Judge Terry Shoemaker of the Elkhart Circuit Court, who served as my mentor early in my judicial career. Both of these judges showed me how a judge can have a firm grasp on the law and administer justice in a way that makes all litigants and lawyers feel heard and respected. I want to thank each of them for showing me how to be a good judge. Again, I want to thank the committee for this hearing, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Judge Lund. And now the question I couldn't wait to ask. You have significant experience. You've talked about it in your opening, but you've also talked about experiences in the community inspired by your efforts to start Elkhart County's first drug court. We need to learn a lot more about addiction and how to treat those who are the victims of it. How has your time on the bench and your work with the drug court prepared you to deal with this issue moving forward?
Thank you, Chairman Durbin. As I said, I'm honored to have served as a judge in the state of Indiana for 15 years. I have had, in that capacity, the opportunity to oversee cases anywhere from commercial litigation to a felony or misdemeanor case, a domestic relations. So I have a wide variety of legal experience and have been exposed to many areas of the law. I thank you for referencing my drug court. That has been a new area in which the Elkhart County community has embraced, where we allow for persons who are suffering from substance use disorder, that are nonviolent, that are on a track that they truly do not wish to be on, to give them an opportunity to be held accountable for their criminal actions, but receive treatment, supervision, rehabilitation, and mentoring. It is our hope that through this we can restore lives and families and ultimately increase public safety by breaking the cycle of addiction. So thank you for that question.
How's it working?
I know I'm a bit biased, but I think it works just great. And I say that because I'm excited about the folks that have been able to successfully complete the program and to have them come back with their families to events and opportunities to mentor our participants currently going through the program. I've also encountered those, however, that were not successful in the program. But what is inspiring to me is for them also to return to court at times, to let us know that the tools that we provided were not for nothing, and that they did learn something through the experience. And I think that we all would benefit if we can reduce the stigma of substance use disorder in our communities.
Thank you. Judge Brisco, as I look at your background here, starting as a magistrate judge, then being appointed by the governor to serve as a judge on the Superior Court, Then more recently, the Supreme Court appointed you to concurrent service on the Indiana Commercial Court, and you've issued approximately 1,818 written decisions. I think you're ready, and you certainly have a background to prove it. So how has your experience as a state and local judge really prepared you for this federal opportunity?
Thank you for the question, Senator. My 5 years as a judicial officer in the state courts of Indiana have very well prepared me by teaching me the importance of fostering an environment in the courtroom where everyone is treated with civility and respect. I view my role as keeping the temperature down so that I am able to fully listen to the arguments of counsel, keeping an open mind. I roll up my sleeves to put in the work of research and study of the law so that I can issue well-reasoned decisions that use clear and accessible language so that the litigants who appear before me and the public alike understand the reasoning behind and are able to receive fair and impartial justice. It's been an honor to serve in the Indiana State Court judicial family, and if I am so confirmed to be an Article III judge, I would conduct myself in that same thoughtful and open and well-reasoned manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Bajio, because of your background as a public defender, there will be some on the committee, I can just predict, are going to question whether or not you have the mindset of a defender instead of being able to take care of a case from either a prosecutor's point of view or a defense point of view, depending on the law and the fact. Would you like to state your position on that?
Yes, thank you for the question, Chair. I would say that my last 4.5 years serving on the state court bench is the best evidence of the kind of judge that I would be should I be confirmed as a federal judge. And my background as a federal public defender, those 18 years during which I represented hundreds of clients, that experience allowed me to develop a real keen sense of the importance of clear communication, of empathy for all people involved in the system, victims, lawyers, clients, as well as the ability to compartmentalize my own personal feelings, because as a court-appointed counsel, I did not condone the acts of my clients, but it was my obligation to set my personal feelings aside and fulfill the promise of the Sixth Amendment. That ability to compartmentalize my own personal feelings is a skill that served me well in my role as a judge today. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge. Congratulations. Let me start with Judge Bajio. Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Judge, tell me about Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Title VI, I believe, Senator, is the provision of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits the discrimination based on religious preferences, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry. May I strike that? I'm sorry, Senator. I was thinking of Title VII. Apologies. As you're well aware, I'm sure from my record, Senator, in my 18 years as a federal litigator, as well as my 4.5 years on the state court bench, I didn't have the opportunity to litigate issues related to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. So apologies for the misstatement. And were I to be so fortunate to be confirmed, Senator, I would make sure with no uncertainty that I would be fully fluent in that issue were it to be presented to me on the bench.
Okay. Judge, is it Brisco?
It's Brisco.
Brisco,
Senator.
I apologize.
No problem.
Tell me about Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Senator, in my 17 years as a member of the bar and 5 years on the bench, I have not had the occasion to address Title VI in my career. However, if I am so fortunate to be confirmed as an Article III judge, I would certainly research and study to be prepared to address that issue, sir.
Judge Lund?
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. I cannot add anything that my panelists have not otherwise add. I can also assure you, though, in the 15 years that I've had the privilege to serve as a judge, that particular provision has not been put before me, but if it were to, I would faithfully review it and appropriately apply all Supreme Court, United States, and Seventh Circuit Court precedent that's put before me.
Well, Title VI is kind of timely, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure you all read the newspapers, right? Okay. Judge Bajio, where does the standing requirement come from?
Senator Kennedy, the standing requirement stems from the cases and controversies provision of Article 3.
Okay, thank you for that. Judge Brisco, I got it right this time. Tell me about the law of the case doctrine.
The law of the case doctrine is when a case has been adjudicated, then there cannot be any other collateral claims stemming from the issues that were already litigated.
Okay, thank you for that. Tell me about, Judge Lund, tell me about federal preemption.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. In just using the words in and of themselves, I would assume that that the phrase speaks for itself, that federal law would preempt anything else that would come before it. But again, if I were posed with that particular legal phrase, I would do all that I could to faithfully review what specifically it is about and faithfully apply that definition to whatever the situation was that was posed in front of me.
Well, where does federal preemption come from?
Well, federal preemption comes from the Supremacy Clause, that federal laws and the Constitution are supreme and state courts are required to uphold them.
And how do you know if there's federal preemption?
Again, I would look towards Article 6 of the Constitution, which again is the provision in which
You won't find it there. How do you know when federal preemption happens? You're going to see it a lot as a federal judge.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Again, I would be looking towards Supreme Court precedent, Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals precedent to review any of those particular issues that would come before the court and would faithfully apply them.
You don't know the rule for determining federal preemption?
I could not accurately articulate that today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much to the nominees. There may be written questions coming your way, and if they do, please respond in a timely fashion if you can. Appreciate it very much. Thank you to your friends and family for being here and supporting you. This meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee stands adjourned.